Hey, peace and blessings. It's your brother Asare. I mean, um, peace to the ancestors. Love y'all, miss y'all, and peace to the true and living. If you've been following any of these series, these many playlists that we've been kind of laying down, any of this material, self to self, self to others, or others to self, you are the true and living. Thank you for tuning in. Nice to meet you. I mean, got I don't know, a nice piece for you today. Hold on one second. Let me make sure my microphone is turned to the max for this occasion. Hold on. Okay, yes, sir. We are in the game. So today we're gonna go over, I know y'all see the title of the video. I'm not even decided what I'm gonna name the title of the video, but I know this is gonna be an interesting piece today. Now, we're still following this same train of thinking. Um, and exploring the idea of the soul as an electrical phenomenon, right? And we're exploring something. Like I said in the previous videos, you go back to previous videos, we get into the research of Robert Becker, human cellular regeneration, and everything like that. We compare the process of de-differentiation from kidney cell, liver cell, turning into a stem cell, and then turning into some other type of cell or whatever. We compared that to reincarnation, and we kind of dealt with the soul as a um, as a electrical phenomenon as opposed to a spiritual phenomenon. And we've been kind of rolling down that rabbit hole and everything like that. And we kind of found a scientific uh, type of framework. Pretty much it's the same framework we've been working with, symbols, patterns, and principles. It's that same idea of a feedback loop. You see what I'm saying? Symbol, anything you give your attention to. Pattern, anything that repeats. A symbol suggesting that it has a message to convey or whatever case may be. And there is a feedback loop from the person, from the observer, the person observing the symbol being the agent, and then the principle being the blueprint, or what we call the soul. So in this framework, we're using something called the bioetheric feedback loop because we're piggybacking off of a lot of Tesla's framework and everything like that. So here we're going to examine the architectonics of psycho-spiritual causality, right? Integrating the bioetheric feedback loop, medical astrology, and the Meridian Marma network. So we're going to talk about, acupuncture points today. Um, energy channels, Marma points, things of that nature today. Kind of just from an electrical perspective, but we're going to stick with the idea that the soul is electrical and that it interfaces with the body through this nervous system that governs the communication between cells. You see what I'm saying? Human regeneration and everything like that. That's more electrical in nature. That's more DC electrical in nature. So let's kind of get into some of this. We ran the whole framework through the AI, certain questions or what have you, and we're basically gonna examine a couple of things here. Let's kind of get into it. The foundational principles. So psychosomatic, energetics, and bioetherics transducer, right? Yeah, you say what a transducer is. That's Bishop from the X-Men. You transforming one type of energy into another. So we make an effort to navigate through the language, because I know a lot of times the language, I say it like this. If I'm if I speak English, which I do, and if I had to learn in order to figure out some other type of, I don't know, way of thinking that was beneficial to me, if I had to learn German in order to figure it out, it's worth learning German, if that makes any sense. So, all right. So the analysis of health and disease from a holistic paradigm necessitates acknowledging a causal loop, right? So basically, this goes back into another video that we did. We're talking about how when you get sick, it means something. You see what I'm saying? It reflects some sort of situation in your life because everything is bleeding into this feedback loop that we're talking about, right? So everything that we think, feel, and experience is a part of this feedback loop. What we saying? Okay, that transcends linear biochemistry. This framework, rooted in the foundational cosmology of traditional systems, posits that the physical body acts as a transducer, Bishop from the X-Men, translating non-physical informational dissonance, often termed psycho-spiritual conflict, into psychological, physiological manifestation, right? So let's read that again. Uh, The physical body acts as a transducer, translating non-physical informational dissonance, discord, chaos, often termed psycho-spiritual conflict, into physiological manifestation. So basically, the situations that happen in your life, or whatever the case may be, they can cause illnesses to manifest in the body. Basically, is what we're talking about. Okay, the resulting pathology is not random, but operates as a precise symbolic communication, right? The resulting pathology is not random, but operates as a precise symbolic communication, a phenomenon recognized in esoteric studies as Cannonian causality. Cannonian causality. Okay, moving along. The bioetheric feedback loop mechanism of psycho-spiritual precipitation. The bioetheric field is conceptualized as the non-physical informational substrate that underlies and structures physical reality, just like what we're talking about with the ether, just like Jacobo Grimberg was talking about with the lattice structure. He was talking about with reality in the synergic field. Similar thing. Within this field resides the dynamic blueprints of an individual's consciousness, including subconscious contracts, unresolved trauma, and karmic imprints. Okay, so within this field resides the dynamic blueprint of an individual's consciousness, including subconscious contracts. I think in the actual book, True Master, we talk about subconscious contracts, unresolved trauma, and karmic imprints. So it talks about how this is in the field at large. And in the previous video, we were talking about archetypes and I don't know, psychological archetypes, principles, and stuff like that. We were talking about how the collective unconscious is the information that's stored inside of the ether. The collective unconscious of human beings and all is a manifestation of some of the energy that's stored within the ether. You see what I'm saying? That's what that video, what we were talking about. Just like how we were talking about the human biofield stores memories and things of that nature, right? So moving right along, the initiation of pathology viewed through a lens of akin to Dolores Cannon's work. She was a person that worked with past life regression, hypnosis, and all kind of things. She has a whole system of a particular type of hypnosis that she does, or whatever case may be. But she dealt a lot with this phenomenon, what we talk about, Cannonian causality, how you'll have illnesses and things in your life represent situations or what have you. How we talked about on previous videos, go back way back. We're talking about how with the experiential, I can take my car breaking down and I can look at what's the reason why my car is broken down and filter it through this system, and I'll come out with some sort of situation in my life. It'll reflect a situation in my life or something that I'm going through. That's what we get into. The same thing we've been talking about for years at this point. Okay, so dictates that the physical illness serves as a literal and symbolic mirror, right? Physical illness serves as a literal and symbolic mirror of a specific life situation or internal conflict that demands conscious resolution, sort of like a dream interpretation, sort of like how we were talking about the car breaking down just then, sort of like these so-called these seemingly random situations or whatever that have some sort of symbolic value, reflective value. Okay, so when an individual encounters an unresolved emotional or spiritual impasse, such as a fundamental conflict between self-assertion and accommodation, or security versus transformation, you notice how they talk. They sounded like how we talking. We've been talking as far as the experiential, how you have these themes, right? Scarcity, abundance, all these themes and stuff like that in their raw form or whatever case may be, similar to like how astrology deals with themes, you know. So okay, so this impasse is registered as informational dissonance. Okay, so when an individual encounters an unresolved emotional or spiritual impasse, such as a fundamental conflict between self-assertion and accommodation, or security versus a transformation, or doing too much or not enough or something like that, what we've been talking about, as simple as it may have sounded, this impasse is registered as an informational dissonance, discord, chaos within the etheric field. The body seeking to bring this subconscious contract into conscious awareness expresses the dissonance or chaos as a concrete physical symptom or disease pattern, right? It'll manifest in your body as a disease. So a situation, remember how we talked about, go back to previous videos, the language of situations. It'll manifest in your life as some sort of disease or something like that. For instance, chronic resentment may manifest through systems associated with flow and release, effectively forcing the physical body to enact the blockage that the psyche is refusing to process. The physical body will have to enact some sort of blockage or something that the psyche refuses to process. So trauma can cause physical illnesses. It can come out in the body. The physical symptom is thus not an arbitrary breakdown, but a precise encoded communication attempting to complete the feedback loop and restore equilibrium to the system. So we coming into that theme again. This stuff, the fabric of reality, all that is constantly trying to heal itself. When it feels wounded, it's constantly trying to heal itself, self-correct, self-assemble, self-repair, and everything like that. And this feedback loop and everything like that is a part of that. Like how we said karma is a part of that. How we said, let me see here, illnesses, as it were, is a part of this. So probably even your car breaking down and all that is a part of that. So bridging consciousness and matter, the fascia meridian connection. Okay, so now we're going to talk about fascia. We talked about, we skimmed on it a little bit in the previous video. Okay, so when you do martial arts, kung fu, internal styles especially, or whatever case may be, in yoga, it's a heavy emphasis on the fascia, ligaments and tendons or whatever. That's why it's so stretchy and everything like that. Everybody's stretching so much or whatever case may be, because when you can't maintain the muscle mass of Arnold Schwarzenegger at age 80 or 90 or something like that or whatever, you're training to be an old man or an old person or whatever case may be. Well, the fascia, as it turns out, just like the bones are piezoelectric, means when you add stress to them, when they encounter stress, they exhibit some sort of electrical charge or whatever case may be. You see what I'm saying? Like vibranium in the comic book. But you'll have the fascia that are also piezoelectric in nature or whatever. So along the fascia, as we're about to talk about in this, you're going to have your acupuncture points. You're going to have your various Marma points and things of that nature. And they correspond with this analog nervous system that operates off the DC. So we're going to get into that here. To understand how non-physical conflicts precipitate into physical blockage, it is essential to identify the physiological substrate that acts as the energetic conduit. The consensus within the modern holistic and biomechanical research suggests that the ubiquitous fascial connective tissue, right, network provides the structural matrix for the energetic pathways described in both traditional Chinese medicine, and Ayurveda, right? Fascia composed largely of collagen, right? People taking eating bags and bags of collagen, like we said before, the red light naturally forces your body to produce collagen. And when I say stuff like that, this is not telling you not to take herbs or anything of that nature or what have you. You need to attack this stuff at all vectors, because it's all kind of frequency poisons out here or whatever case may be. If you had some sort of aggressive illness or whatever case may be, and you were terminally ill, you wouldn't just approach it from one vector. You would take many, many vectors to try to eliminate that illness or whatever. So this is just another level. This is another layer, or whatever case may be. It's not to replace herbs, because either way, you're still eating light. If you're eating the herbs, you're still eating light, or you're taking light and stuff like that. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole. And if we need to, we will go down that. Fascia, composed largely of collagen, forms a web-like structure surrounding muscles, bones, organs, and other structures, providing structural integrity and transmitting mechanical forces throughout the body. Research includes the fascia that research indicates that the fascial plane often aligns precisely with the traditional acupuncture channels, both superficially and deeply, confirming its role as the physical analog for the meridians. So the network of fascia, that's the physical analog for the meridians and channels that you get in your acupuncture, acupressure, and everything like that. And it's piezoelectric. You see what I'm saying? It responds to stress and emits some sort of electrical charge. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, fascia as the bioetherics transducer, piezoelectricity. Let's get it. The critical mechanism linking psychological stress to physical obstruction lies in the piezoelectric properties of the fascia. Piezoelectricity is the electric charge generated in certain crystalline materials, including quartz is piezoelectric as an example, including biological matter such as collagen, right? DNA, right? And various proteins, right? All of which are semiconductors, as we talked about, right? In response to applied mechanical stress. So the DNA, as it responds to stress, collagen responds to stress, various proteins in the body respond to stress. The body's structure is constantly subjected to the mechanical stress from gravity and movement. However, when an individual represses emotional conflict, fear, or unresolved trauma, this psychic tension manifests as chronic, sustained muscle and connective tissue contraction. So the stuff you think manifests as muscle tension contraction, particularly in areas like the shoulders, the back, and the jaw. This somatic tension represents a form of mechanical stress, the fascial tissue, acting as a semiconductor. We've been talking about semiconductors this whole time or whatever. Semiconductors, you can almost interchange that with capacitor, with battery. You know what I'm saying? You can almost interchange that. Similar thing. Immediately translates this chronic mechanical stress via the piezoelectric effect into abnormal electrical or bioelectrical signals, leading to the disruption of the body's intrinsic current flow, right? So mental stress disrupts the body's current flow. I know some of y'all like, okay, that's a given. I kind of already know that, but we're going to keep this. Bear with me, roll with me. This bioelectric disruption is the physiological manifestation of chi stagnation, right? So when they talk about chi stagnation in traditional Chinese medicine and things of that nature, or whatever case may be. I know a lot of my Western-minded people, my Western-minded martial artists, they don't believe in chi. You see what I'm saying? So we gonna reconcile that. You see what I'm saying, with this little tidbit of research. You see what I'm saying? Like we always say, we just add contrast to the conversation. So you know what I'm saying? Love all my martial arts brothers. You see what I'm saying? Regardless of what background they come from or whatever, it's all respect for even taking the time to trying to learn a style. So I guess this is this is for y'all. This bioelectric disruption is the physiological manifestation of chi stagnation in traditional Chinese martial arts, or sangha, blockage in Ayurveda. So blocking of your channels or whatever case may be, your acupuncture channels and stuff like that or whatever, it's related physically to the fascia, right? That's where the electricity is flowing. If emotional conflict compels a person to adopt a tense, rigid posture, mechanical stress, the piezoelectric property of the collagen ensures that the underlying subconscious conflict is maintained as a persistent electrical abnormality within the meridian network. So let's go back. The piezoelectric property of collagen ensures that the underlying subconscious conflict is maintained as a persistent electrical abnormality within the meridian system. So the subconscious conflict that you may be going through, it can be locked into your body as an electrical signal and stuff like that, locked into the meridian network and everything like that. The fascial system thus serves as the essential transducer, physically embodying the psycho-spiritual conflict and perpetrating the bioetheric feedback loop until the underlying tension is consciously released. So until you deal with whatever you need to deal with in the real world or whatever case may be, if you can't deal with that, you see what I'm saying, the blueprint is gonna push it out through your body. You see what I'm saying? One way or another, you're gonna have to deal with it. So the energetic anatomy of traditional Chinese medicine, meridians, and psycho-emotional mapping. Traditional Chinese medicine provides a precise, established map of how specific emotional and spiritual energies interact with and organize the body's physiological functions through the meridian network. These pathways, known as Jing Lao, are the network through which qi, vital energy, flows, right? So we can liken chi to some sort of electrical current or whatever that's circulating through the fascia, especially. Okay, the 12 principal meridians, Jing Lo, and the 5 spirits, Shin. The network comprises 12 main meridians standardized by international organizations for nomenclature. These channels are fundamentally associated with the specific internal organ systems, Zhang Fu. Importantly, the original nomenclature of these meridians is rooted in ancient Chinese cosmology based on the degree of yin and yang, which describes phases and positions of the sun, correlating the human biological clock, circadian biology, with the celestial clock, right? Okay, the meridians are, because if we get into Chinese medicine, you're going to see kind of like all those correlations and stuff like that. The celestial clock or whatever times a day, the 5 elements, all of that is in there. The meridians are named according to their energy phase, such as Tai Yang, Great Yang, Xiao Yang, Lesser Yang, Yang Ming, Bright Yang, Tai Yin, Great Yin, Xiao Yin, Lesser Yin, and Ju Yin, terminal Yin or reverting Yin. And, you know, any person who's probably Chinese out there watching this or whatever, I'm sure like within the language and within the culture, I'm sure there's all kind of nuance in that. You see what I'm saying? In the metaphysics and everything like that. I'm just trying to kind of lay it down to give a general perception. So this cosmological basis affirms the correlation between human health and astronomical cycles, providing a direct link to the principles of medical astrology. The 12 principal channels, including the lung, large intestine, stomach, spleen, heart, small intestine, bladder, kidney, pericardium, triple energizer, triple warmer, gallbladder, and liver meridian. Okay, psycho-emotional governance and trauma storage, right? In traditional Chinese medicine, each Zhang Fu organ system governs not only a set of physical tasks, but each organ system not only governs a set of physical tasks, but also specific mental, emotional, and spiritual functions known collectively as the 5 spirits, Shin, right? Imbalances in these emotional states create chi stagnation. Imbalances in these emotional states create chi stagnation, right? So you could be emotionally unhinged about something, and let's say like your liver may correspond to a particular emotion, and you may have an issue with your liver, and you may not be able to, people of nowadays are symbol illiterate, so you may not be able to connect the two or whatever. The symbolic situation with the symbol of the liver. Like I said before, you probably heard me say on other videos, God never shuts up. God is always talking to you. And God has infinite patience for our lack of understanding. You know, yours and mine. You feel me? So, until it says it in a way that registers in your mind or what have you, you're gonna keep experiencing whatever situation. Okay. Liver meridian, anger and resentment. The liver is responsible for the smooth flow of chi and blood throughout the entire body and regulates biosecretion. Emotionally, the liver is associated with chronic anger, resentment, frustration, irritability, and bitterness. Cannonian mirroring. When an individual feels metaphysically caged, blocked, or unable to assert personal freedom and self-expression, the result The resulting conflict is registered as liver chi stagnation or whatever. So this is a situation in your life, and this is how it registers in the area of the body that corresponds with that, in the area of the body that may be affected negatively by that. The body manifests this psychological constraint physically as symptoms of tightness, pressure, or explosive internal force, such as headache, breast distension, menstrual pain, and tendinitis. The inability to maintain a smooth emotional flow is mirrored by the physical constraint of chi and blood circulation. Okay, so kidney and meridian. Kidney meridian. Fear and willpower. The kidneys are considered the key organs of sustaining life, governing essence, gene, reproduction, growth, development, and maturation. They connect with the bones, teeth, ears, and hair. The spiritual aspect governed by the kidneys is the zai, will or willpower. Cannonian mirroring imbalance manifests emotionally as chronic fear, anxiety, insecurity, aloofness, and weak willpower. Life situations that require confronting deep insecurity, making courageous decisions, or committing to a path, but which are instead met with retreat or paralyzing indecision, deplete the kidneys. Gene. The body mirrors this psychological failure to establish core stability by manifesting issues in the deepest physical structures, the bones and the skeletal integrity. All right. So, yeah. Okay. So that kind of like deals with facing tough situations, whatever the case may be. Okay. So let's go to spleen meridian, worry and brooding. Spleen systems govern the yi, intellect, and essential to the transportation and transformation of nutrients. Excess spleen energy often correlates with excessive intellectual activity, overanalyzing, dwelling on past incidents, and excessive rationalization, a state of living too much in one's head, right? Cannonian mirroring. If the intellect attempts to perpetually dominate life experiences and rationalize emotions away, the spleen becomes unbalanced. A profound manifestation of Cannonian mirroring occurs when the spleen energy is deficient. Specific combinations of points on the spleen and small intestines meridians can be used to straighten and strengthen the spine, and concurrently aid in gaining mental strength and clarity to face life's difficulties. The psychological expression, a spineless human being, referring to someone lacking mental fortitude, is literally reflected in structural weakness, demonstrating the chronic indecision and the failure of the earth element spleen to nourish the physical core can lead to an anatomical inability to stand firm. Now, what I've also noticed, like from my personal experience, when it talks about the spine, I know sometimes having back issues situationally, that also comes from feeling unsupported, having a lack of support from people. You see what I'm saying? And then your back goes out or whatever case may be as a result. But that's just a thing. That's just additional correlation I noticed. Trauma sequestrian. Beyond the primary organ associations, trauma, defined as unresolved emotional energy, often lodges physically as chi and blood stagnation. Okay, trauma manifests as blood stagnation or chi stagnation. Their stored tension is frequently observed in the shoulders, back, and jaws, regions where psychological tension is habitually held or wedged. These persistent physical manifestations maintain the piezoelectric feedback loop, right? Initiated by the original stressor, requiring intervention via methods like acupuncture to restore nervous system harmony and unblock obstructed meridians. Okay, so that's acupuncture. So the fascia being extremely important, and the fascia ultimately leading back to this analog nervous system that Robert Becker found. That we kind of like basing a lot of this off of. So let's keep going. We're going to get into Ayurvedic medicine, Marma points, nadis, and strotas. Okay, so Ayurveda provides an equally detailed energetic map focusing on the channels, srotas, and the high concentration vital points, marmas, Marmas, where life force prana is most prominent. This system emphasizes the structural integrity of the channels as vital for both physical and conscious function, right? So now we can talk about all this stuff because we've established that the channels are real. The channels are real. The channel correlate with everything. For all my non-believers, shout out to y'all. But now we can get into Ayurvedic medicine. Other people who talk about very similar channels and stuff like that. So we can take this a little bit more seriously. We're still dealing with the soul from an electrical perspective, and this is more electrical inclined, but it kind of gives us more receipts to validate this. Okay, so again, wow, ancient people weren't crazy. So let's keep going. The Schrotas, the channels of circulation and psychosomatic flow. The Schrotas are defined as innumerable, ubiquitous channels, both visible like blood vessels and invisible subtle energy pathways that transport nutrients, energy, and waste products throughout the body and mind healthy. The healthy Schrotas are essential for proper growth, development, and smooth functioning of the brain and sensory integration. Shrota Doshti, channel disorders as karmic impedance. All right. Channel disorders in the Schrotas. Blockages in the Schrotas is karmic impedances. Disease, according to the Ayurveda, begins with disturbances, Shrota Dashti, in these channels. These disorders precisely reflect the nature of the psychospiritual or karmatic impediments being held by the individual, right? Let's go back over that. These disorders precisely reflect the nature of the psychospiritual or karmic impediments being held by the individual, all right? So karma is a part of the feedback loop, and these physical impediments and disorders and illnesses that may be caused by blockages in these channels are a product of all that. So let's keep going. Sangha, blockage. This is a restriction of flow, often due to the accumulation of toxins, ama, or excess kapha. So that in Ayurvedic medicine, there are different classifications that tie into the elements and everything like that. Different classifications for different forces working within the body, and they tie into various elements, and various different systems within the body are aligned with these different forces or whatever. Kapha being one of them. So you're gonna hear terminology like that. Mirroring in a Cannonian context, Sangha reflects resistance to movement or necessary change in a life situation, causing stagnation in energy flow and buildup of unreleased emotional material. Blocked channels in the brain, monovaha srota, can lead to delayed speech or cognitive delay, right? Ati praviti, and I know I'm butchering words left and right, y'all. Excuse me, as y'all can tell, I'm not a native speaker. I'm just passing through. You feel me? This represents an excessive flow of hyperactivity, often linked to pitta aggregation. Pitta is another one of those forces. This mirrors a lack of internal boundaries, resulting in burnout, hyperactivity, or sensory overload, such as is observed in channels governing breath and focus. Panavaha srotas. Vimarga gamanam, misdirection of flow. This involves substances flowing in the wrong direction or leaking into undesired areas, right? A leaky gut or something like that, I guess. Mirroring. This reflects severe systematic issues or psychological confusion, such as irregular nerve signals leading to poor coordination or difficulty integrating sensory input. Okay, the specialized Mona Vahasrota's channels of the mind are responsible for conducting sensory information and maintaining balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So you know how we talking about, okay, so that's the first time we really even mentioned the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Like how when we talking about this analog nervous system that Becker found, it has nothing to do with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. It's the third thing. You see what I'm saying? It's a totally different thing. Blockage here is a direct energetic correlate of psycho-spiritual trauma causing cognitive and behavioral issues. Okay, Marma points, junctures of consciousness and matter. Marma points are fundamental to Ayurvedic therapy, defined as vital junctions where consciousness meets matter. Anatomically, a marma point is a juncture where two or more types of tissue, including muscles, veins, ligaments, bones, or joints, meet. Energetically, marmas are intersections of vital life force, prana, where the subtle force of the three dashas, vata, pitta, kapha, concentrate. The three dashas, those three substances or energetic substances that the body is made out of, or whatever, in Ayurvedic medicine. These are 108 marma points covering the human body. Major marmas correspond to the 7 chakras, and we're gonna get into what they are probably in another video when we talk about tantra a little bit. We're gonna get into what the chakras are and all that stuff like that according to this electrical model, because it's literature written about that already from a spiritual perspective, and it has its own value as well. We're just filtering all of it from a through a different framework that's a little bit more electrical. So whatever value that it already has, these will be other nuances that are added along. Okay, so functioning as pranic centers that govern and energize the subtle body. So it's saying chakras are functioning as pranic centers that govern and energize the subtle body. Treating these marmas is considered a method of influencing the nadis. Nadis are the subtle energy channels, and restoring harmony to the mind and the body. All right. Neurovascular access points and the subtle energy network. Right. So the significance of marma points extends beyond the purely energetic description that we just described, as they coincide with the critical anatomic features. Right. So this ain't just something out of somebody's imagination. They correspond with critical anatomic features. They are high density neurovascular fascial junctures, right? Back to the fascia, right? For example, the 37 marmas in the head and neck often coincide with the cranial sutures and emissary veins, which help drain, cool, and relieve pressure from the cranial vault. Kashipra marma, located between the first and second toes, is associated with the extender hallucis longus, the first dorsal metatarsal artery, and the deep fibular, excuse me, I'm not a doctor or a medical student of any kind, fibular nerve, because marmas are regions of concentrated nerves and vessels. They function, so they're basically a nexus of nerve ganglia. As far as marma points, they function as high voltage nodes in the body's bioelectric framework. The activation of a marma point via gentle pressure or massage influences the flow of prana by physically stimulating these dense junctures. They serve as a high leverage access point into the subtle energy network, allowing the practitioner to effectively release the sangha blockage or trapped psychic energy that the surrounding fascia has sequestered through the piezoelectric mechanism. Okay, so basically we basically described how you get blockages in your energy system. You feel me, from karma, from freaking going psychological issues or whatever case may be, stress, the day-to-day, this energetic pollution that we've been talking about, all that stuff or whatever creates these same blockages in this energetic system or whatever that is dictated on a physical level by your fascia, or that's related on a physical level to your fascia. Okay, moving right along. Medical astrology, the celestial blueprint and functional correlates. Medical astrology provides the archetypal language necessary to categorize the nature of psycho-spiritual lesson or conflict mirrored by illness. It connects the macrocosm, celestial dynamics, to the microcosm, human physiology, viewing health imbalances through the lens of dynamic celestial archetypes, right? And we talked about the archetypes and what they are on the stable etheric vortexes. We talked about that on a previous video, right? Okay, so the 6 axes of medical astrology and functional systems. Medical astrology focuses on 6 opposing zodiacal axes, which define functional systems within the body rather than isolated structures. These polarities delineate the inherent tensions or choices defining the core Cannonian conflicts, right? So these are the axes and kind of what they mean, just to kind of skim over it. Um, Aries Libra axis, self versus others, right? So if your ascendant is if you're Aries ascendant or Libra ascendant, you would fit into this axis. This axis would be very significant. So if your ascendant falls on one of these axes or whatever case, maybe your midheaven or something like that, it would be fairly weighty in your chart. Um, okay, Aries Libra axis, self versus others. The axis governs acid, alkaline, and endocrine vitality balance. Psycho-spiritual theme. The fundamental conflict centers on identity, self-assertion, independence, Aries, versus the need for rational harmony, compromise, and diplomacy, Libra. Illness related to this axis reflects chronic difficulties establishing ego boundaries, maintaining personal integrity within relationships, or achieving dynamic equilibrium between giving and taking, right? Okay, so that's that. Okay. Taurus and Scorpio axis, possession versus transformation. This axis governs intake and elimination, right? Okay, psycho-spiritual theme. The conflict relates to security, attachment, material resources, and stability. Taurus versus necessity, transformation, letting go, crisis, emotional depth, and regeneration. Scorpio. Physiologically, this axis correlates with the systems of assimilation and the release of what is no longer needed, be it toxins, waste, or deep emotional trauma. Okay, so that's Taurus, Scorpio. Again, I think the simplest way to apply this, if somebody was trying to apply a natal chart, see what your ascendant falls in or whatever, or your midheaven and stuff like that. And these would be more substantial forces or the four cardinal points of your chart, however. Um, Gemini, Sagittarius axis, mind versus belief. This, or your nodes of the moon might fall into some of this. You know what I'm saying? This axis governs breath and circulation. Psycho spiritual theme. The tension is between concrete thought, communication, learning, and nervous system. Gemini versus high philosophy, truth, belief system, expansion, and long distance views. Sagittarius. Imbalances can manifest as nervous disorders, difficulty synthesizing information, or dogmatic rigidity. Cancer, Capricorn axis, nourishment versus structure. This axis governs nourishment and structure. Psycho-spiritual theme. This polarity defines a balance between internal emotional security, home, and family needs. Cancer versus external duty, ambition, reputation, and social authority. Structure. Capricorn. Imbalances often reflect chronic tensions between personal feelings and external demands affecting digestive integrity and the skeletal framework. Okay, almost done. Leo Aquarius axis, heart versus community. This axis governs circulation, because Leo deals with the heart. Psycho spiritual theme. The conflict is between self-expression, creativity, recognition, and the vital heart. Leo versus collective identity, social causes, logic, and detached objectivity. Aquarius. This axis pertains to the distribution of vitality through the body's major circulatory systems, right? Last one, Virgo Pisces axis, service versus surrender. This axis governs digestion and immunity. Psycho-spiritual theme. This involves a balance between detailed perfectionism, practical service, and analytical discernment. Virgo versus spiritual surrender, dissolution of boundaries, and universal consciousness. Pisces. Um, imbalances imbalances frequently affect the physical boundary between self and environment, digestive function, and immune reactivity such as allergies. Uh, I know that may sound however it sounds, but if you kind of, if you're familiar with your chart or whatever, you ever get into that, you into astrology like that or whatever case may be, when you find things like that in your chart, especially let's say like on your nodes of the moon or something, those will be two major issues of your life that you will be struggling with, you know what I'm saying, or that'll be pulling you in two totally different directions. So that's in out of medical astrology or whatever, but it shows how the inevitable situations or directions you may be pulled in life or whatever case may be, they come with their own inherent medical illnesses or whatever case may be. You see what I'm saying? Or hardships, as it were. Okay, so the psychological is connected to the physical illness. Okay, mapping celestial rulership to energetic channels. The correlation between celestial archetypes and physiological channels is implicit in the cosmological foundation of traditional Chinese medicine. The meridians name themselves, the names of the meridians themselves reflect yin yang phases corresponding to positions of the sun at cyclical time, right? This suggests the names of the meridians are based on like energy zones and times and phases and stuff like that. Okay, so this suggests that planetary forces stress the corresponding bodily channels. So channels that are named after particular planetary influences and things of that nature are triggered by those same planetary influences. Okay, initiating the bioetheric feedback loop response. For example, the lung meridian associated with the metal element, because you know metal is one of the 5 elements in Chinese philosophy, and the process of letting go, grief, has been correlated with the tiger in the Chinese zodiac, representing an internally yin force governing a phase of the time clock. Furthermore, esoteric systems recognizing planetary meridians that act as energy highways, suggesting that the planetary transit or natal challenges can activate the Cannonian contract. What? The Cannonian contract. Like I said in True Master Volume 1, we talk about contracts. We talk about decisions that we make. You know what I'm saying? The things that we do down here are based on certain contracts that we agree to, whether we know it or not. Okay, Cannonian contract tied to a specific energetic pathway. What? So it's saying a Cannonian contract is tied to each energetic pathway. So a specific um, psychological agreement that's going to yield a particular um, physical disorder is tied to the various energetic pathways of the body. Basically what he's saying. So let's keep going. Okay, synthesizing the bioetheric correlative map and therapeutic application. The integration of these systems yields a comprehensive correlative map moving from the macro archetype astrology canon to the micro location of energetic blockages, TCM Ayurveda. This allows for a holistic diagnosis that targets the root emotional and spiritual conflict. A comprehensive correlative table. So got a table up there. We don't get all that. We don't get all that. Therapeutic strategies for etheric alignment. Okay, so therapeutic strategies for etheric alignment. Effective holistic intervention requires targeting the physical manifestation of the energetic blockage while addressing the underlying Cannonian conflict. Cannonian meaning the event that's going the event that's associated with the physical illness, right? Just how we said, we had a similar video. We were analyzing the metaphysics of a fight. You getting hit in a fight is this same thing, or your inability to perform in any given situation ties into this very same thing. Okay, so treating the bioetheric matrix, therapeutic modalities like acupuncture and Marma therapy function by mechanically stimulating the fascial network to disrupt the piezoelectric charge created by stored emotional stress. Can you dig it? By applying pressure or inserting needles into the vital junctions, the trapped chi or prana sangha is released, restoring the smooth bioelectric current flow. This intervention takes the body out of the chronic survival mode and harmonizes the system because it's robbed of its energy, so it's trying to get it from somewhere else or it's causing chaos. Okay, traditional Chinese medicine strategy, releasing stagnation. Acupuncture utilizes cardinal points known to be specific for particular conditions, such as P6 for respiratory system or ST36 for increasing energy. For emotional release, points associated with primary emotional organs are targeted. For example, treating liver points to address chronic irritability and resentment. Acupuncture aims to restore the flow of chi and blood, physically removing the trauma wedged in the system. So it can, based on the problems that you have in your life, it can gauge what meridians to deal with. You see what I'm saying? Ayurvedic strategy, cleansing the srotas. Ayurvedic treatment focuses on clearing blockages and restoring flow of the srotas using specific therapies. Panchakarma, the fivefold detoxification therapy, is critical for resolving deeper sangha and ama toxins. Therapies such as Vamana emesis clear the related blockages, while Verachana purgation cleanses Pitta related pathways, simultaneously achieving Marma, activating Marma points. The access points to the subtle energy network helps balance the dashas and promote deep relaxation, allowing the physical and emotional systems to realign. Right? Amen. Okay. Case study example. 1 second. Make sure. Okay, I'm still now. Okay, let's see. A case study, an example, rationalization and structural collapse. Consider a common Cannonian scenario involving indecision and intellectual avoidance. Life situation, Cannonian cause, right? An individual faces a major life change, e.g., a career pivot, or boundary establishment, but avoids the emotional pain and the necessary action. Instead, entering a cycle of analysis paralysis. You don't know what to do. You faced with a life situation and you kind of like freeze, spending months rationalizing it, overthinking it. What should I do? What should I do? What you think I should do? What do you think I should do? This represents an internal conflict where the required courage and action, liver gallbladder energy, are suppressed by excessive reliance on intellectual processing. The spleen, excessive reliance on the spleen, but you need to deal with this liver gallbladder courage. Astrological correlate. The challenge fundamentally rests on the Gemini Sagittarius axis, reflecting an imbalance between the capacity for concrete thinking, Gemini, and necessity of thrusting a higher path or truth, Sagittarius. Energetic manifestation. The spleen chi is excessively consumed by brooding and intellectual activity, creating a state of imbalance. This leads to sangha, blockage in the mano vaha shrota due to the mental clutter, kapha accumulation, resulting in confusion and severe lack of mental clarity. Symptom mirroring, okay, closer to the punchline. Let's see here. Symptom mirror. The body mirrors the psychological inability to stand firm or commit by manifesting physical symptoms of deficit, spleen, chi. A specific and profound mirroring effect is observed when this mental weakness translates into structural fragility. Okay, so this is how it's going to manifest physically. Structural fragility, often manifesting as a weakness or structural instability in the spine. All right, we're talking about the spineless thing. You see what I'm saying? The physical embodiment of being a spineless human being. Additionally, chronic digestive complaints may arise due to the spleen's core functional failure, right? See, so these organs are almost archetypal as far as certain emotions and feelings and things like that. I know a person that talks about this at length is Mantak Chia. You see what I'm saying? That's that Mantak Chia is off the hook. Um, uh, he's into the whole Taoist healing and stuff like that. I think he's got his own style of kung fu. Mantak Chi is bad, but therapeutic target. Okay, therapeutic target treatment involves addressing the intellectual stagnation by calming the yi through points on the spleen meridian, often combined with points on the small intestine meridian to enhance the mental ability to discern and strengthen the core. Ayurvedic treatment would focus on clearing sangha in the manavaha shrota and activating marma points related to mental stability, right? So you can come together and find a solution to what you need to find, such as Stapini Marma, located between the eyebrow to reestablish the meeting point of consciousness and matter. Okay, so in conclusion, so that's just an example of how they would go about treating it and how you can either approach it from the physical illness that the person has or either the situation that the person is going through, which equates to some sort of physical inability to do something and stuff like that. So now you see as well how I was talking about this also comes out with you eating a bag of chips when you in a fight. Oh, I keep getting hit in this area, or this, I can't, maintain this particular thing, or I can't think to do this, or whatever. It translates into something, some Cannonian cause, as this is calling it. Okay, conclusion. A unified model of energetic diagnosis, the integration of bioetheric feedback loop, medical astrology, traditional Chinese medicine, meridians, and Ayurvedic channels establish a robust multidisciplinary model for understanding the etiology of illness. This perspective moves beyond surface symptoms to identify the psychospiritual root cause. The bioetheric feedback loop explains the causal principle. The physical body mirrors the unresolved consciousness. The physical body mirrors the unresolved consciousness. And this is just the body. Like how we talked about within the experiential, this would qualify as what's called body reflections. This would just apply to the body. Like how I'm talking about in True Master, I'm talking about doing this with a martial art or something like that. This only applies to the body, but it applies to your environment at large as well, is what we say. We expand this out to your body at large. Your environment at large when we're dealing with True Master and the experiential. So the fascial network via the mechanism of piezoelectricity acts as a definitive physiological conduit, translating chronic emotional stress, mechanical tension into specific electrical disturbances, chi stagnation or sangha along the meridian and nadi pathways. Medical astrology then provides the archetypal mapping, classifying the fundamental nature of the life lesson or conflict, e.g. Aries Libra conflict over identity versus relationship, as an example. Finally, traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda supply the precise anatomical map, the 12 meridians, and the 108 Marma points. Some systems have more or less than 108 points, but however, Shrotas, where this and Shrotas are the channel Shrotas, where this archetypal conflict is physically stored and localized. This unified model necessitates that expert practitioners employ a diagnostic approach that assesses not only the pulse and tongue, traditional Chinese medicine, or the dosha imbalances, Ayurveda, but also the specific archetypal tensions, astrology, governing the patient's current life situation. So what they're going through in life corresponds to whatever illness or sickness that they may be having. I think we said that in the previous video. We just kind of going a lot more in detail in this video. Effective holistic therapy utilizing modalities such as acupuncture and Marma point activation must target the physical structures that house an energetic blockage, simultaneously requiring the patient to confront and resolve unresolved psycho-spiritual contracts and ensure permanent healing. Permanent healing, not just patching him up. Permanent healing, prevent the perpetuation of the bioetheric feedback cycle. Can you dig that? Okay, so that was us kind of taking a deep dive, using this framework, this bioetheric feedback loop framework, how the soul, we're theorizing it being electrical, and just how we talked about the principle, the ego, and the agent in the other videos, or whatever case may be. The physical person being the agent, the principle being the original blueprint, or what we call in the soul, or whatever. How there is a feedback loop. All of the events in your life, from the sicknesses to the people you meet, all of those things are part of this feedback loop, what we kind of like getting into. And that's that. If you like what you've been hearing, man, like and subscribe. So what some of my YouTube peers say, it's a small click for you, but it means a lot for the growth of this channel, however it may go. But tune in for the next one. We got a couple of more little pieces like that we're gonna lay down. Hope y'all enjoy it. Peace to the true and living, man. Peace to the gods, man. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace.